What's up, guys? Dr. Seth back to help you solve your powerlifting problems. And today's going to be another edition of me talking about my own problems to try to share some perspective to better help you. And for those of you that don't know, I am 4 weeks post pec reattachment on this left side. And it has been a while since I have talked to you guys, but I want to kind of save these updates for when I actually have something to talk about because I am doing so much better, both physically and mentally, than I was the last time I talked about this back on YouTube with you guys. And a big part of that is just sticking it out until the point where I can look back and be like, I'm proud of how I've handled this. I'm proud of what I've been able to do. I'm proud to see the progress that I've made. And I think that the more hard things that we do, the more times that we get our asses kicked and we stand up from it, the more that we get in a situation where things look bleak and we're able to overcome it, the almost, it doesn't get easier, but it's easier to see the perspective that it can be handled. It's easier to look back and realize, like, this is pretty cool. And like being on that point, like even 4 weeks post surgery, it is so cool to think, like, this is how down I felt. This is how down the situation seemed. This is how hopeless and scared I was, to know that, like, hey, I'm here. I climbed out of that hole. I made it back to this point. And in your own lives, it's like, just think of something that sucked. Think of something hard that happened. Think of something that made you feel like there wasn't any chance. And then realize, like, you're still here. You're still kicking. You came back from that. And like, if you can look at that and like realize that you came back from that, you made it, you climbed over that wall, it's not going to make the next wall you see easier. It's not going to make it smaller. It's not going to make it, happy-go-lucky fun time, but it can help you have the courage to at least try to climb it. And with injury, like, that's one of the big things I see in powerlifting is not even injury, but people in general, they love to give themselves, safety blankets that protect them from the truth, that protect them from seeing how good they really are. And so many lifters want to say, like, oh, I have this bad back, bad knee, bad elbow, bad shoulder, bad whatever, so I can't. And yeah, they might have a joint, a body part, something that isn't good. They might have something that has a lot wrong with it. But by saying that I have this whatever, I can't, it protects them from really trying. It protects them from finding out how good they really could be. It protects them from finding out how good they are. And it doesn't really make sense because obviously we want to know that we want to believe that we can. We want to believe that we can do this, that, or the other. But when we have that safety net, it shifts it from I believe I can, I'm going to do it, I'm going to get there, to I believe that I could have if I didn't. And being able to say, like, oh, I could have done that if this thing didn't happen to me, it lets you feel better about where you are. It lets you feel better about not getting better. It lets you feel better about not trying. It gives you a reason to stop trying to get better. And that's what I really want to project to people who are dealing with injuries, is that it doesn't have to be a reason to quit trying. It doesn't have to be a reason to limit yourselves. It doesn't have to be a reason to say, like, I can't get better, I can't do this, I can't do that. Because we look at the history of the sport, like, there have been dudes that have come back from gnarly stuff to hit huge totals. Like, look at Vlad, biggest raw squat ever after blowing both of his knees off. Like, that's gnarly. I don't think he sat there going, oh, I can't squat again, or I can't ever be strong again because I ripped both my knees all the way off. No, he fucking did something about it. He got back into it and he went for it. He gave it his all because he wanted to find out how good he really could be. And that's how I'm treating this pack. That's how I'm treating, or I have treated, every injury I've had, in this stage of my powerlifting career. I want to see where I can get. I don't care what's happened. I want to see how far I can take this. I want to see what I can actually do because I still believe that I can do cool shit. I'm not at this, I could have done cool shit. I never want to be at this, I could have done it. Because as soon as I start saying that, I'm fucking done and I should just quit and give up. That's not who I want to be. That's not where I want to be. So I'm going to do the best that I can to make it as far back as I can. And for those of you that know my pec history, for those of you that kind of know what the tear was, what happened, what was going on before, I think that I really should have a better chance at hitting a bench PR after this than I did even before. Because for those of you who are around, or for those of you know, for those who listen to me ramble about this shit, I had a partial myotendinous junction tear in 2016, and that pec, it didn't feel great for a very, very, very long time. And part of the reason it didn't feel great is I believed that that vulnerability would make my pec not feel great. And yeah, like when we do have structural damage, when we do have something that is wrong, like when we do have like a myotendinous junction tear, that is where the tendon joins the muscle, it really ain't going to heal all that well on its own. It's not going to be the same. But just because it's not the same doesn't mean it can't get better. And like, spoiler alert, that vulnerability kind of did come back to bite me in the ass a little bit with this going on. But I was able to accomplish a lot more with that pack as soon as I realized, like, just because it's vulnerable doesn't mean that I can't get it to be better. And my big problem early on was that I thought because I damaged my pack, I needed to protect it. I thought that I needed to keep it safe. I thought that I needed to make it easier on it so that I didn't hurt it more. And in doing that, by avoiding training full range bench, by avoiding training the pack, by avoiding doing anything that made the pack feel remotely sketchy, it would feel sketchy and it would sneak up on me when I least expected it. Like it would be feeling great, feeling great, feeling great with all my board presses, but then I get to a meet, do a full range press, and twang, it would pop again, and it would fucking set me back for another few months, and I was just scared to use it. And that cycle repeated for years and years and years and years until I finally realized like that I needed to fix the vulnerability or shrink the vulnerability. The only way to shrink the vulnerability was to actually train the pec and better prepare it to handle loading so that I could do stuff with it. And in doing that, I strung together a number of good benches with zero issue. Like I went from, I hit a 440, I hit a 451, I hit a 458, I hit a 463, I hit a 474, I hit a 484, and so on and so forth without the pec fucking off. And even at this last meet where it did fuck off, I smashed an all-time PR 496 like RPE air, and that's part of the reason why I got overambitious. Is my mistake, my big mistake in all of this was I made it feel so good that I thought I was invincible, which I should have known better for. Like I've kind of had this problem a couple times in my career, is just thinking, fuck it, I put it on the bar, I'm good for it. But I felt like I was good for it. And like, yes, that was a mistake in the moment. Yes, that was something that I shouldn't have done. Like I shouldn't have loaded a 30-pound all-time PR on the bar, knowing my history, knowing the pack, knowing even that it did feel a little funny on the day. I probably should have just passed my third, taken that 496, been happy, moved on. But I didn't. I put 518 on the bar because I wanted to win the meet. I put 518 on the bar because I wanted to hit a all-time Canadian total. And I thought I had a shot at it. I thought I had a shot at it on racking it. It felt super light. I thought I had a shot at it on the way down. It felt rock solid on the way down. I was in my lats. It felt good. And then about here, I felt a little twang typical of what I had experienced many, 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 many times with this pec the way that it was. And every time I felt that twang, I was still able to touch and press it successfully. I felt that twang. I'm like, whatever, it's good. I'll just load in the lats harder and I'll be good. As soon as I got the press command, I went to reverse, I went to press, and I felt the whole pec let go and just pull across my chest. It felt like a fucking flaming hot ball of spaghetti pulling across out of my armpit. That's like the best way to describe it. Like when you tear something, you're gonna like feel the pop, and simultaneously it's gonna get like really hot, and then you're just gonna feel it slither across. And it's not a good feeling, but when it happens, you'll know that it happened. And that's what I kind of do, like, fuck. And like I talked about in the last video, I was terrified of it. Like it's hard not to be afraid of it. It's hard not to be in that position where you are afraid, you don't know the future. And like, I was worried that my powerlifting career, like I was like, fuck, is this the end of my career? I don't want this to be the end of my career. And I just kind of spiraled into this, not wanting it to be it, not wanting it to be done, not wanting to not be able to come back. And it just put me in this loop of mental shittiness because I was so afraid that it might be it. And it's kind of like all I knew to do was do what I could. And that's what I kind of kept doing. And early on, it's like doing what I could for it. It didn't feel like I was making any progress. Like until the surgery happened, like it didn't feel like I was going to be able to do anything with it just because the pec was gone. I couldn't move my arm worth of shit. Like I couldn't do anything to make, doing a chest fly feel better because there was nothing there to actually do a chest fly. And that was hard for those 2 weeks until the surgery. And then once the surgery happened, it got hard again, but for another entire other reason, because other than like not being able to do a press, not being able to do a fly, my arm felt pretty good before the surgery. Like I was able to, like, if I didn't know that I didn't have a pec, or like if someone didn't know, they saw me walking around, they wouldn't know that there was a problem with where I was. But as soon as that surgery hit, I was back to square negative 100 compared to where I was after the tear itself, because the surgery, like you're immobilized, you can't move, you can't do fucking anything for those couple days after. And that, once again, it sucked and it kind of put me back in this what if I can't do it state of mind. And again, the only thing that I could do, the only thing that I knew to do was do fucking something. Keep this going. Keep yourself trying to be productive. And it was really fucked up because those first couple days, it's like you can't do much. And my something for that first little bit was just sit there, dude, relax, let it calm down, let it heal up. Just don't do anything stupid. And that was so fucking hard to do nothing and convince myself that doing nothing was the right call. And it was, after that little bit of nothing, it was about a day to kind of get to the point where it didn't suck. I didn't need painkillers. I was able to then start like, okay, let's try to do a little tiny bit. Let's try to do the minimum that I can while still feeling good, while still like moving the shoulder. And how that started was just doing little shoulder blade rolls, just doing little light external rotation isometrics into my hand, into the sling, doing little light triceps to the sling, doing little light biceps into my hand. And once I was able to do that, it kind of just compounded and compounded and compounded. And, a few days after that, I felt good enough to get out of the sling. I felt good enough to, do light curls, like with a 2-pound dumbbell, do light triceps with empty stack, and just start moving the elbow. I was able to start doing, further and further and further out isometrics. I was able to really just start, doing shoulder pendulums, barely moving the arm. And again, like once I was able to do those, it added up. And it wasn't long after that I was able to start doing isometrics for the rear delt. And I was able to start kind of barely just contracting the pec in a relaxed state just to put a little bit in there. It wasn't long after that I was able to start doing band pull-aparts with a micro mini band. And I was just limiting range of motion, not going very far. But the goal was to try to pull a little bit further every time I did it. And now I'm able to do like real full band pull-aparts with a mini. Like it's a cool place to be to see this progress. And kind of along the way, like with the pec contractions, with doing light, barely loading the pec isometrics, that's when people kind of started losing their mind in terms of like telling me I was going to fuck it up and telling me that I'm at such a huge risk, and having physios in my DMs threatening to call me out for being so irresponsible and being a bad example for people. And the big thing that people are missing is that, number one, I'm not telling y'all to do this. I'm not telling you guys that this is how you should rehab. This is how I am doing it for myself. And this is how I am doing it for myself, acknowledging the risks that I could be making things potentially worse if I do push too far. But by acknowledging those risks, I know that they're there. I also know that because I'm taking these risks, there's a potential to have some reward. And when we look at actual tissue biomechanics, healing biomechanics, cell biomechanics, we realize that our connective tissue, it responds to the loads it's exposed to. We realize that the fundamental problem with scar tissue healing is that when scar tissue heals without any loading, without any pull, without any strain, the fibers of it are going to get all mismatched and balled up. And that's why we have scar tissue as a stain that we think of as nasty, because it almost always forms independent of loading, so it doesn't know which way to align its fibers, and that's why it doesn't work very well. But with scar tissue, if we're able to barely load it, lightly load it, give it a tiny bit of pull, those fibers are going to orientate to the line of pull, and that scar tissue will become functional. And the key here is that we just can't load it so aggressively that we disrupt the healing process. So we got to be very, very, very careful, but we can see insane progress and insanely good outcomes if we start loading injuries early. And talking about it in the surgical realm, like I understand why people lose their minds with me like doing this for myself post-surgery. But if we look at like partial tears, partial strains, it's totally normal to load it right afterwards. It's totally normal to load it pretty aggressively right after partial tear, and the outcomes are usually very, very, very good. And the only difference with surgery is that with surgery and like people looking at like insane, because it's held together by, literal threads, the risk is higher. The risk is way higher. And I understand that. And like that's part of why I'm confident in me doing this, is because I know that it's risky. I know that it's not safe. I know that it may not be the most intelligent decision because of the risks, but in acknowledging that, I'm going to keep myself safe while doing so. And again, like to reiterate it, I don't want this to be like, this is your post-surgery rehab manual. This is my experiment to see how well I can get back and how soon I can get back. And considering where I am now and considering how I still feel like I haven't pushed it in the slightest, like everything just feels totally natural that I've done, I'm thrilled to see where it is, because again, like I can open up. I have pretty much as much range going into a rear delt fly as I do on the right side. My ER, it's not all the way back, but it is pretty damn good. My IR is pretty much as it was prior to the surgery. It's coming along fantastically. And in terms of progression, like I started out just laying on my back with yoga blocks under my arms so I could do partial range floor presses. I just pull out a yoga block, get a little bit more range once it felt sketchy, pull another one, full range floor presses once it felt not sketchy, get on the bench, get a little bit more range once it felt not sketchy. And then I started just barely loading it. Like the first time I loaded it, it was holding a empty, like a fat grip handle, empty, no dumbbell, just pushing the fat grip. That was the first loading. And I did that for a few days until it felt not sketchy. From there, I just started grabbing a little bit heavier objects, like I pressed a banana, I started pressing a root beer can, and then pretty soon I was ready to press a 2.5-pound plate. Pretty soon after that, I was ready to press a 5-pound dumbbell. Pretty soon after that, I was ready for a 7.5. Pretty soon after that, I was ready for a 10. And I'm just going to continue climbing at the rate that feels totally not sketchy. I don't want any question in my mind of whether or not I can handle it, because that's when the risk is going to get too high. And with how it feels, like I feel like I could, put a bar on this bench right now, roll back and bang out some reps for you guys to show off. But I know that there's a little bit of like apprehension in my mind. There's a little bit of fear. There's a little bit of questioning. So it's like, it's not even worth trying right now until I know that it's solid. Like I'm not even going to try to touch a bench bar until like I know I can handle a 25-pound dumbbell totally fine. So it will take time, and it will be a process, but I know that I'm going to get there, and I know that as long as I do not push things too hard, I'm going to get there, and I'm going to get there better than I would had I just not done anything. Because my greatest fear with knowing how I handle previous surgeries was that I would not do enough and I would set myself back. And really, yeah, maybe I'm swinging too far to the other side of that pendulum, but I'm doing what I'm doing. I feel safe doing it, and I'm super, super, super excited of where I am, and I'm so proud to see that the progress that I've made. And I know that 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, I'm gonna be able to look back on this time and be like, that was pretty freaking cool. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for sticking around. Thank you guys for the support. Thank you guys for the concern, for those of you like trying to remind me that I might screw up. And it's like, yeah, I don't like hearing it, because I feel like I am in control of my situation. But even then, it's like the reminders that I am taking risk, it makes me aware of it. And it makes me aware that I shouldn't push too hard, which is probably going to keep me safer than going for it full send, right? Which I ain't planning on doing anyways, but I appreciate all you guys. Thank you for watching. Drop a comment, hit share, hit subscribe, tell your friends. And if you want to get in deep on the principles that I'm using and the frameworks that I employ to get back from this, and the science behind it, the biomechanics behind it, the physiology behind it, the neurology behind managing pain, what I'm doing is I got the Bridging the Gap Between Rehab and Training lecture series, where I'm going to get in deep into all of that for different injury classifications. So we're going to talk about tendinopathy, we're going to talk about strains, tears, we're going to talk about post-surgery, we're going to talk about low back issues, herniations, etc. We're going to get into how to apply these principles to all of those to better help you find your way back from stuff. It is going to be for coaches, it's for clinicians, so they can kind of get a little bit more into the understanding training side of things. It's for coaches so they can get into the understanding the rehab side of things, because I really just want coaches and clinicians to be able to work better together and understand each other's roles and understand how they can better athlete outcomes. Because the big problem I see is that lifters will get released from physical therapy, they will go back to training, and then they just fuck themselves up again. And that really is a failure of both the rehab side and the coaching side, because the rehab isn't strenuous enough to prepare them for training. The training isn't scaled enough to take them back from rehab, and we really just need to meet in the middle and understand why we're doing certain things and understand why we're scaling loading, understand how to do that, and that is going to make it so much smoother for everybody all around. And because you guys stuck around to the end of this YouTube video, I got a discount code, SAVE150, all cap, but not all caps, capital S, AVE 150 numbers. Put it on the screen maybe at the end of this video just so y'all can see it instead of me just rambling about it. That'll put it back to the early bird sale price, because for those of y'all paying attention, I want to reward you. So thank you for that. Hop on, join in. Looking forward to seeing you, because it's my goal to change how people see both rehab and change how people see powerlifting training. And if we can do that, we're going to make lifters better. We're going to make lifters safer. We're going to let lifters have more fun, because it sucks to train while in pain. And if we have a better framework to handle that, it's going to make everything more awesome. So peace out, guys. Thank you again for watching. See y'all soon.